was a bit of a slam, wasn't it? Today we're going to look at a CEN MG10 MT3. Some interesting design features on this Nitro truck. First, quick look at the manual. Don't always get my hands on the hard copy of the manual, and this is a particularly nice one. Could have either got it with a stick controller or a trigger controller with aerials, so that gives an idea of the age of it. But I think they were 40 megahertz FM, so the last of RTRs before 2.4 gigahertz stuff came out. This is printed on plasticized paper with colour diagrams and instructions what to do in what order. So these are really great manuals. Beautiful diagrams there. They are computer generated, but they're the CAD drawings. But that's great. I mean, there's no reason why they can't include the CAD drawings in a manual. Why wouldn't they? They've been used for the manufacturing process. Just copy them out. But you've got the instructions, good presentation, everything exploded and shown for you. It's just what you guys need, isn't it? Full exploded parts diagram. I guess I should probably scan and upload this for people to access, and the parts list. Right, onto the truck itself. Let's get the basics out of the way. Let's check the weight. $1,303. So that's a nice lightweight truck, this, for a 1/10 scale. I bring that up because I just did a video on a Tamiya NDF01T, and that was 2.6 kilograms, so 2,600, and so that's double the weight of this for the same category of truck, a 1/10 scale 4-wheel drive Nitro truck. This is nice and light on the lightweight side of things, and it looks spidery, spindly. Right, let's get the wheelbase. 285 wheelbase here, and pretty wide, 320. So it's actually wider than it is longer wheelbase wise. You can get an idea that's in the 285 region, and it's 320 wide. So there we go. Some interesting on that front alone. It's lightweight, it's wider than it is longer wheelbase wise. Let's start with the middle and the chassis. So that's the layout. You've got the engine laid quite far back in the chassis. You've got a pretty straightforward clutch bell to primary gear, the spur gear, which is a nice large one, so you've got a good torque reduction, well, increase in torque because of a reduction drive there. That's great. Yeah, it takes a lot of stress out of other components if you just get that done through the gearing initially. After that though, you've got a gearbox at the front and a gearbox, sorry, that was a gearbox at the back and a gearbox at the front. So it's all geared drivetrain. And interestingly, I don't know if we can, we can just get a glimpse. I can see a glimpse of it. If you can see a glimpse down there. I'm not sure if we're going to be able to see that. Oh yeah, there we go. Now look under that spur gear. There is a shaft. Can you see it? It's not so easy to make it out, but that is a shaft. So there's a shaft that goes all the way from the back to the front, and it's very low in the chassis, almost through the center of the chassis there to the front gearbox there. And that's how the four-wheel drive works on this. Let's stick with the drivetrain then. It goes to differential on the front. Look at those cups, they're right inside the gearbox. It's a pretty cool feature, isn't it? Don't have them sticking out to catch things or whatever. Like they're nicely contained inside there. And then a conventional dog bone and cup on the axle side, which it's not fancy universal joint, but they do work, and they work for a long time and in a degraded mode, and they're fixable. Pretty long shafts there as well, because they're going right from the middle right to the outside. So back to that chassis shape then. As you can see, we've got this bridge type chassis with this large ground clearance in the middle and going down the front and the back to accommodate the drivetrain, etc. So let me know what you guys think about that. It's not dissimilar to the 1/8 scale trucks like the HPI Savage, Traxxas T-Max, CEN, all those ones where they decided to put the main running gear high up. The drawback of that is the centre of gravity becomes high up in the truck, so you've just got more weight higher up that tips it over, and a lot of those 1/8 scale trucks tip over fairly easily. This, however, you get the sense that because it's generally lightweight, if you push at the top of the engine, it's pretty good. It doesn't incline to lift up the inside wheels, so I think they've done quite well with, even though they've raised all the running gear into the top, the way the weight has been managed has kept it at as close to the chassis as possible. Things like laying the servo flat make that difference, and battery box right in the middle but still low down, not higher up. And the bulk of the block weight of the engine is there, and then the gears in the drivetrain are going downwards, so that's how they've kept that centre of gravity lower and got this good ground clearance here. I'm not sure how practical that is at speed. It still gives that higher weight and moment of inertia, but definitely for clearing obstacles and stuff, if any of you drive crawlers, you'll know that it's pretty helpful to have that ground clearance there, and helps the truck get over something and sort of tip itself over it and be able to get traction and move forward. I like the layout though, it's nice. You've got two radio boxes, one battery box here and one for the receiver there, servos and your throttle servo here. Just give an idea of that in operation. It's got quite a nice carburettor there with a slide throttle and two mixture screws, your main mixture screw, and it does have a low speed needle screw in there, so quite tunable that engine, which is nice. And this is your steering servo, integrated servo saver on the horn, and double bell cranks, so conventional setup with your one bell crank there and the other one on that side, giving a pretty aggressive Ackerman effect there. You can see the inside wheel at substantially more angle than the outside one, but then these arms are in their outermost setting. You could reduce that effect by moving them to the inner setting. Okay, let's look at the front of the truck. And it's very spider like, I said, because you've got long wishbones and long arms, a narrow centre body and a lot of articulation. Look at that, huge amount of articulation there because of that design. The length of those arms allow that huge articulation. Be actually pretty interesting to make this into a crawler, wouldn't it? Got a lot of articulation, good ground clearance and lightweight. I can see it working quite well. Drawback with having such an angle on the shocks is that you get a reducing rate, so it's easier to push it up at the top of the travel than it is at the bottom. So it's initially stiff and gets easier. Sometimes in setups that's required, especially for crawler type setups actually, because it allows it to accommodate the articulation at lower speeds well. but generally for dynamic setups it's not that desirable, because you want a progressive rate in order to accommodate jumps well and keep the central chassis supported effectively, not just getting looser as it tips over more. Right, conventional C-hub arrangement, tried and tested for decades. Again, slightly interesting, they've gone for this huge articulation, long arms, then gone with a C-hub and not pivot ball joints, which would have sort of complemented that range of movement and articulation. Anyway, that was the choice they made. These plastics are pretty good and the tolerances are pretty good, so it's a bit wobbly but nothing major. Got a bit of wobble in the axle. It's pretty common and 1/10 scale stuff with that size of bearings. Probably has a 6mm axle in there. Deep dish wheels, Lamborghini style. Tyres with their bones type tread. They feel pretty decent. These have perished now from age, but they're definitely lightweight. They're contributing to the lightweightness of it because that's a thin rubber racing type tyre. That's this side of the truck. Not as interesting as the other side. And then let's get round to the back. Again, pretty conventional stuff design wise. Aside from the long arms, long shafts, conventional dog bones, convention hubs and uprights, shock tower, those nice inset drive cups, I like those, very neat. And again the lay down springs. Now look, to further support what I was saying about suspension setup, and this being the opposite of a progressive rate spring, the word escapes me, but it's a softening rate spring. That's why from the factory they've put these rubbers in here. They're to accommodate the fact that on a bigger landing it actually is softer to push the wheel up further. So they've put a bump stop in there as a sort of secondary spring really, but to absorb the load and faster, longer travel hits, because they know it's going to be softer up here, not getting harder and harder as it is on most suspension designs, most suspension designs have the angle in it, but it's much less, so the effect is way less pronounced at this angle, and then vertically it wouldn't be pronounced at all. But that proves what I was saying. They put these dampers in the rear shocks to allow the spring rate to operate till here, and then at this point it to be assisted by that damper, or resisted, the load resisted by that damper, a bump stop, however you want to imagine it. So it gets to here on spring rate, reducing spring rate because of the angle, and then the rubber provides a sort of hard soft but stop, but a soft hard stop, if you understand what I'm saying, because that is a soft material. Got gear type differentials. They're nice and smooth. They feel pretty high quality, and you could probably adjust their stiffness by fitting a heavier grease inside or silicone oil. But overall, that shaft drivetrain is smooth and free. It's quite nice. So not providing much resistance. I like that. So let's get onto the engine then. So that was your clutch bell, your spare gear. You've got a slipper arrangement in there. That's not so common to have on the Nitro car, but you can adjust this nut and that spring tension, and there'll be little friction pads in there, so that will allow this gear to slip slightly if the torque is too much, again saving the rest of the drivetrain, or when you land from jumps. The idea is that these friction pads between there, they take up the wear and a bit of slip rather than the shock going through your whole drivetrain. The engine is the CEN NT16, which was a ubiquitous engine for them. Oh no, sorry, my bad, it's the NX16, so it's the later version of that engine. It's a 1/10 scale small block. Actually does feel like it produced quite decent power. It's got that sporty carb on it, so I reckon that'll be a nice go with that. Let's do some drop tests. Back slams down, not much support there, so rear springs need to be stiffer, but that's how it came from the factory, and that is probably how it handles best, having the rear pretty saggy but the front well supported to accommodate steering and direction changes as we go along. So that's it guys, CEN MG10 MT3 TR2 they call this one. Interesting truck, cool design features, decent quality. Let me know what you think in the comments, like and subscribe, and I'll keep trying to get through my Nitro collection and talk through these engineering aspects of all these beautiful machines.